Welcome, welcome. Just letting everybody get on here. Connect to audio. Feel free to turn on your cameras, keep them off, whatever you want to do, whatever you're most comfortable with. That's totally fine. Zoom fatigue is a real thing, so I feel for you. But thank you so much for joining our Energy Systems Engineering alumni webinar today. We so appreciate you joining. I am Alicia Markey. I'm the recruiter for Energy Systems Engineering, or as we call it, ESE. That's the acronym for it. We'll have Brittany introduce herself in a minute. She's our alum today. She'll touch on our ESE overview, and then we'll go into question and answers. So if you have any questions that you want to know about the program, University of Michigan, just anything at all, or about Brittany's time here, her work, anything like that, feel free to ask. You can unmute and ask those questions or also use the chat function, whatever you're most comfortable doing, totally fine. Then we'll go over our application deadlines and then contact information. Just in case you have questions that come up after the webinar, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'll happily answer those questions and then kind of reviewing those application materials. So I'm going to stop talking here to give it over to the one you're all here to really see, our esteemed alum, Brittany.
Well, thank you, Alicia. I'm really happy to be here and exciting to talk to you all today about ESC. Thanks for coming. I'm actually still in Michigan, so it's a beautiful, like, white outlook over here to the left of me. I'm happy to be here. I graduated in 2017 from ESC, so I'll tell you a little bit more about like my background and like what I'm doing today, and then feel free to ask questions at any point. Like Alicia said, I'm happy to dive into anything. I'm an open book. But before I actually went to the University of Michigan, I was actually an English teacher. So I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I'm from Michigan. I was an English major. I joined Teach for America and ended up in South Louisiana, where I taught school there. I taught secondary English for a couple of years. I got recruited to be a science instigator and inquirist at a really cool school in Baton Rouge. And so I went there. And I realized that 20 of the 30 projects I initiated were focused on sustainability and energy. And I realized at that point, I was like, I want a career switch. I think this will be a really good, passionate career for me. I really love teaching, but I think, English maybe isn't the right path. And so I went back to Michigan and went to school. So I definitely switched careers, pivoted pretty hardcore from English to engineering. But I started off in the School of Natural Resources and Environment at the University of Michigan, which is actually now called SEAS, the Sustainability School for Environment and Sustainability. And that's how I learned about ESC. So I learned through that dual degree program. I actually have 2 master's degrees from the University of Michigan, one from SEAS and one from ESC. So that dual degree program allowed me to get like the depth and technical expertise from the engineering degree that you're looking at right now in ESC, with also the broader perspective of like sustainable systems from SNRE. So with that dual degree program, I worked really, really hard at the University of Michigan and had a lot of really great experiences there. I had an incredible round of internships. I was a fact sheet intern at the Center for Sustainable Systems. I was an intern with Dow Chemical. I had some scholarship opportunities through like Bosch, for example. I worked with Johnson Controls as a student consultant. And I worked as a consultant for NSF International, which is where I eventually started working in my career as a sustainability consultant. So I got exposed to a lot of really amazing companies and contacts while I was at the University of Michigan that really launched my career afterwards. And I've been kind of going since then. I've been in sustainability consulting now since I graduated in 2017. 3 years ago, I actually started my own business with a partner called Positive Scenarios Consulting. So we're a small firm of 12 individuals, small but mighty. We have clients all over the world, but some of the key clients that are public are Carhartt, Beyond Meat, Peloton, Dell Technologies, and ConAgra brands. So we work with very large companies and also very small. And what we do is help them mitigate and manage their environmental impacts. And so we manage their greenhouse gas inventories or help them set climate reduction goals or like help them report out against all these emerging regulations in Europe and elsewhere. So a lot of our work is in corporate sustainability, and I get to work with really awesome people every day, and I love my job. So I think I'll probably pause there and see if if that solicits any questions. I could talk for hours about what I do and my experience at Michigan, but I'll kind of leave it there for now and see what you guys want to ask.
Great overview. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Love to hear how you took the entrepreneurial route for the degree,
Yes.
you know. All right, so we'll see if any of you have any questions that you want to know more about. Like I said, you can unmute and ask your questions or feel free to put them in the chat. While we're waiting for some of those questions to come in, I know you kind of touched on this, Brittany, but why specifically did you study or choose to study this degree at U of M? Because I know there's a lot of different kind of programs out there that are, focused on, energy and things, but why ESE specifically?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, well, I did start in at University of Michigan in the C's program, so had good exposure from other classmates of like what degrees they pursued, and so I learned through my classmates at that point. And I really chose ESC mainly because I was interested in energy explicitly. I didn't want to go into environmental and civil engineering. I was a chemistry major, but I wasn't interested in chemical engineering. I knew I wanted to have like the deep depth of technical expertise to like help sell myself in the job market later, because that was a gap I was missing. I was an English major, so I didn't have technical skills. So I chose energy mostly out of interest and also because the dual degree program, it allowed me to, I guess I liked the classes and like um, I guess the synergies I had with my my sustainable systems degree at SNRE. So mostly it was the classes and like I don't know, it seemed to fit more of my interests. I also did not need, for any of those considering, I don't know if this is still changed or still the same, Alicia, but I did not need a bachelor's in engineering. That was key for me. So I had a bachelor's in chemistry. I went back to school so that I could get into the engineering program. So that was a key for me as well. I didn't need to go back to get an engineering degree.
So for the degree itself, it is helpful having an engineering degree, but if you have like a chemistry degree or mathematical degree,
Yeah,
you can still apply for the program itself. So that's
yeah,
exactly kind of how Brittany fit. Now, if you came just straight with it, like an in English degree, you wouldn't really
right.
fit the program because it is highly scientific and mathematical. But with chemistry and mathematical background, you could still do the degree program.
Yeah. And I was really challenged. I was like attracted to the challenge. I really wanted to kind of, you know, dive into the technical side of my world. I didn't want to learn just about these systems and policies and reporting frameworks. I wanted to understand the intricacies of how actually energy systems work. If I'm going to help consult a company to actually implement renewable energy, like what does that actually mean? And how can I communicate that on a level that a broader audience can understand? And so I was very attracted to the depth that energy systems engineering would go into.
That's actually a perfect point, and I'm going to stop sharing just to bring up our curriculum. So the curriculum itself for the program is very broad, which some students love, some students don't like because it is so open-ended. There are, of course, and you'll see this right now as I share my screen with everyone. There are buckets for your integrative science, program core, career pathways, and then immersive practice, your capstone course. But these offer Brittany just said, your core and your breadth courses as well. So you get the core foundational courses, of course, where you really learn your specific area. But then you have these integrative science courses where you get to take courses from all across the University of Michigan as well. So you could take public policy courses, business courses, art and architecture courses if it fits with what you're trying to learn with your degree. And then career pathways courses are influenced from our like alumni, Brittany being one of them, and our external alumni board and industry experts who are working in the field saying, this is what we want to see from alums from the program graduating, like knowledge. So those courses are kind of influenced from people working in the field telling us like, no, we need to see more of this. The students need to know more of these skills. So that's where you can pick and choose those courses. And the immersive practice is that capstone project where you get to work on a research project or an internship with a possible employer, a company where you put everything you've learned to use, kind of see it come to fruition and get to work on those, kind of real world situations and internships. So a
Mhm.
lot of these courses you'll see here kind of range. You'll see here finance courses, mechanical engineering, manufacturing courses, nuclear courses too. So it's really all across the board that you can kind of take these courses in and across from. So I'm going to put this in the chat for everyone as well to view. Oh, and we have some questions coming in. Awesome.
Yay.
All right. So this is a question here. Is sustainable systems a course you take when you get the energy systems degree?
I not necessarily. It's a course that I took for my degree with C's, but I believe you can take it with your engineering energy systems. Wow, sorry, ESC degree. So it is a lot of the courses are you get credit for different programs, so it's very, very convenient. And so that's one that has like dual credit. So you can take sustainable systems, and it does give you credit for ESC. It is a requirement for SNRE or like now C's, but you don't have to take it, I don't believe, right, Alicia, in ESC, but it is a really great intro to
You're
systems.
required. So I'm sorry to cut you off, Brittany.
No, great.
The required courses are listed right here. So this is currently what's required is Auto 533, which is Advanced Energy Solutions, ESENG 505, which is Energy Generation and Storage and Using Modern Materials, and then ESENG 501, which is Seminar on Energy Systems and Technology and Policy. Those are the required courses there. So exactly what Brittany said, you can take that course of course, if you're interested in it, and it can count towards the degree, but it's not a requirement. For her, because she was doing that nice dual degree, for both, it was required. So, oh,
Yeah,
good. That makes sense. Then they said thank you.
great.
Another
Of course.
another question
The
here.
mhm. There
Are
are courses that go into detail on this, and this was really fun and difficult for me. So I mentioned I was an English major, so I transitioned to engineering and had to like really dive in deeply to understand a lot of the systems that I was learning about. But in one course in particular, for example, we basically like designed a windmill, and like actually the systems that go into it, not just like the components of the windmill, but like thinking broader perspective, like what policies enable that to happen, and thinking about wind generation credits, and there's a lot more. Well, that's what I really liked about the program too. I should have said that earlier. In addition to taking classes and having the ability to access all these like 100 graduate programs that are in the top 10, like you have that access as a student at the University of Michigan, but within each class itself, I think that the professors do a really good job of giving you a breadth of perspectives. So, just as an example, in that windmill, like we learned exactly how a windmill functions, but we also learned like the context politically and policy wise that surrounded it. Did a lot with energy generation and storage. That was my like focus, and so that of course links very closely to renewable energy systems and different solar panels and like what's the payback period and like the degradation over time. And so you learn a lot about that. You actually also in some classes will map out and scope like the cost of that and like when does it break even and stuff like that. So it's very applicable to like what I do now, but what many of you might want to do in the future.
Okay. Hello.
hello? Do you have a question?
Hi.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Okay. My name is Abubakar. I come from to Zanzibar, Tanzania.
Oh,
I'm
welcome.
marine engineering. So I want to know uh, uh, what is energy system as a uh, as a student from Michigan. I want to know.
Well, I like how I would define energy systems. I think for me, it was, and I think this is how it was taught to me really to the university. But when we think about energy, right, you think about, all right, like what is the utility giving you, or what kind of what I guess like mechanism enables energy. But energy systems is so much more than that. You're not just thinking about the energy inputs and outputs, but you're thinking about, like how does this affect like water or like how does this affect the local community that you're going to be sourcing energy from? And so there's a lot of different systems beyond the mechanics that are worth considering as you're thinking about building a solar field. So for me, the system was not just the mechanical system, but the broader system of like where that energy fits within the world that we're trying to utilize it in. I don't know if that's a good answer to your question, but that's how I interpret energy systems.
Thank you.
Okay,
Does that answer your
okay.
question, Ellie?
Now continue.
Okay, great. And then I think there's a question I missed. Does this course end at?
Yep, at the
So,
MS level, or does it have a doctorate degree as well?
oh,
I don't believe it has a doctorate degree, but
Nope.
Alicia, does it? Okay.
Unfortunately, no. So this degree is only a MEng, so it's a Master's of Engineering degree. We don't have a PhD or DEng, Doctor of Engineering degree for it. We have had students in the past go on for their PhD at our institute or other institutes, but it's not the goal for the degree as well. Because it's an MEng, it's more industry focused and industry ready. So that's the goal for the program itself is to go for that. And then the second part of that question
I was going to
is,
answer that.
yeah, if it's
That's
purely
it.
research or if there's coursework too. So go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. So, Gift, that's a great question. And so, in general, almost every class or most classes, there's like individual work that I would consider like kind of research for yourself, but it's like there's like homework, right? You have homework for your class to learn like and master the skill sets that your professors are teaching you. There's like individual work for every class, but then there's also this project component. So a lot of the classes have like group work. So you'll always have individual work and a mixture of group work where you get to work with your fellow students and collaborate and coordinate. And that was honestly one of my favorite parts because the students aren't necessarily in ESE either. They could be in policy, they could be in business school. So in the process of interacting with your fellow students on these group projects, you learn a lot more than you would have otherwise just doing individual research work. The University of Michigan itself is an incredible research institution. So there's a lot of research going on outside of classwork. So there are like graduate research assistant positions, for example, that you can apply for and do research beyond your original classwork. But within the classwork itself, it's very much a mixture of independent and group learning, which was very valuable for me. So hopefully that answers your question, Gift, but let me know if it does not.
We have another question about, I have a MEng degree in electrical and electronics engineering. I want to enroll in the MS for sustainable energy technologies. Do I have a chance? So go ahead.
I would say I have no idea if you have a chance, but I would strongly say like apply and find out. So the only reason I'll have Alicia describe a little bit more on the application process itself. But I personally was so nervous about applying to this program. I did not think I was good enough. I almost didn't apply. It was the day before the application was due. I just did not have the confidence. I was like, I just don't think I should do this. I'm not sure, but I would really miss out if I didn't. And so I turned in my application like the last day I could, which is not like me. And I got in and I was so relieved and so excited. And I just couldn't believe that I'd almost like missed an opportunity of a lifetime just because I was worried or scared. And so regardless, I don't know your background, but your degrees sound very applicable. So I would certainly suggest that they could apply, but I would say even if you're not sure, give it a chance because you'll regret not applying. I know I would have. And then Alicia, if you want to answer that more officially from
Yep. That's exactly. So, I mean, the requirements, like we brought up kind of earlier, are looking for a background. So, a bachelor's degree or undergraduate degree in engineering is preferred. But chemistry, physics, biology, or mathematics is great, is ideal for the program because that's what you're going to be doing. And especially since you already have an MEng in electrical and electronics engineering is very helpful as well. The minimum GPA that we're looking for, let me just pull this up too. for the application, it's a 3.0. The average is a 3.5. So that's something to consider as well. And then the application itself does have an application fee associated with it, 75 for domestic and 90 for international students. You will have 3 letters of recommendation as well. Those can come from faculty members or supervisors and managers if you're working full time, or a mixture of both of those. The GRE is not required, but if you're at that 3.0 threshold, we recommend taking it. And then you'll supply your resume, your curriculum vitae. Then you will do 2 written statements, your personal statement and academic statement of purpose. Those are 500 words each. Keep it to that because the review committee is reading everything you supply. So try to keep it to those. And then your official transcripts. And then if you're an international student, those English proficiency exams as well. So it's a holistic application review when they're looking at everything as well. So just to take that into consideration when applying. So we have some hands up. So I think let's take, Stephen had his hand up for a bit. So Stephen, do you want to unmute and ask yours before we go back to the chat?
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alicia. Thank you, Brittany. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, yep.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Right. So my question, this is actually to Brittany. So Brittany, were you doing the thesis option or the coursework option?
Yes, so I did the coursework option, and then I did do a capstone. So I worked on the courses and I did a capstone. And actually, I'm glad you asked that because Alicia mentioned earlier, sometimes your capstone project can lead into a job. That's exactly what happened for me. So I had an internship at NSF International where I did my capstone project. I designed it myself. It was very it was a great opportunity for me to figure out like what I wanted to do and design it within a company that gave me credit and for ESE. But I designed like, it was called a fully integrated risk scanning tool. So I called it FIRST. And it was a way for me to evaluate, or anyone to evaluate, risks and opportunities deep in supply chains for food and agriculture companies. So yes, I did the capstone and coursework.
Right. So I mean, per what you just said, it means even when you do the coursework option, you still, I mean, you'll still be doing a lot of research. Is that what you mean?
The capstone is part of the requirement, I believe, and Alicia can keep me honest here,
Yeah.
but there is a capstone that is, I believe it's just like a semester long, potentially, but you can extend it if you need to or want to. I wouldn't consider the capstone as like research as much as it is like on hands like experience. Or so for me, mine was more of like a consulting engagement. I worked with a company to develop a tool to sell to like, their clients. So I wouldn't really although research was involved, it wasn't like I was preparing a peer-reviewed research paper, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Stephen,
okay.
Stephen, if I can, the degree itself is not thesis or like capstone based. The degree is not
Okay.
a MS, it's an MEng. So that's where the capstone plays the requirement part. So all students have to do a capstone project.
Okay.
And the capstone project, yep, you're exactly right, is usually based on an internship where they go and work with a specific company on a specific project at that company that fulfills the capstone requirement. Sometimes students will do it on a research project at the University of Michigan. That's pretty rare that happens, but it can happen. But the degree itself is not a thesis-based like research degree or option, because that's mainly for like doctoral programs or MS degree programs.
Right. I was a bit confused when I got my letter, so I just needed to be certain on that. Yes. Yeah. I think for now, I'll hold on so that other people can also ask their questions.
Great.
I think Ezekiel, I think you were next with the hand up. Ezekiel?
Ezekiel, you're on mute. I don't know if you know that.
Okay, while we're waiting for Ezekiel, Constance, do you want to go next while we're waiting for Ezekiel? Constance, you can go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for.
I think Constance is talking now. Sorry about that. Did you guys call Ezekiel?
We did. Yep.
Is it okay if I jump right in? Sorry, I'm using my fiance
That's fine.
in Zoom. My apologies. I didn't know how to work his phone. I had two questions. Sorry about that, Constance. I was going through a little bit of technical difficulties right there. My first question is this degree, is it potentially able to be 100% fully remote, like an online degree? Can I do it that way? And my second follow-up question is for international students, are there any scholarships or grants that are available to us?
I can start answering, and then Alicia let me know if, I just want to make sure she's going to keep me honest because I'm not as familiar with the broader program requirements. But yes, it is all, there are some people who take this program all online. In fact, that was a huge benefit for anyone who wants to be, who will be on campus as well. So I was on campus, but a ton of our classmates were online. And so you actually work with each other online in group projects. And it was helpful for me being on campus too, because I could actually go back and watch the videos and try to like if I missed something in class or I didn't understand it, I could go back and watch it. I can't speak to like what it was like being an online student, but I know that the videos were incredibly helpful and easy to access. And you could speed up parts where you didn't really need to focus on, and you could slow it down where you really needed to focus. So it was very helpful for me to like guide my own learning in that way. I think Alicia will have to speak towards like international student specific scholarships and programs, but I can speak to just broadly general ones. I know one of the, so I applied, there's several scholarships that you can apply for through engineering. So like I got in the engineering program may or may not give scholarships as well. So for me, I was very fortunate where I got like a College of Engineering scholarship. I got the Bosch Sustainability Fellowship. There's like a Dow Sustainability Fellowship that a lot of folks in my field apply for and get. There's also things that, you know, you could like apply for within the university to like work for the university as like a research student or as like a graduate student instructor. So I was able to be a graduate student instructor for some classes. So that really helped financially. I know the financial burden, especially for out-of-state folks, is pretty high, but there are opportunities out there. I don't know if Alicia wants to speak specifically to international students or add to anything I missed.
I just added in the chat for everyone's scholarship link for more information on the scholarships that are available, and then a link to the student employment as well, because a lot of our students did do that, especially international students, because a lot of the scholarships aren't always available for international students, and it also depends on like requirements and things for each scholarship individually for what they're looking for. But the student employment was a large focus for a lot of our international students, like working on campus positions, like at cafes or even offices on campus. So I put those in the chat for everyone. And as Brittany said, yes, the degree can be done on campus here in Ann Arbor or fully online from almost anywhere in the world. So a lot of our students that were doing it online were working full time and doing the degree part time. So you can watch those lectures whenever it kind of fits into your schedule. You don't have to log in at 1:30 and view it. It's whenever it works best for you. So it's a nice opportunity for the degree as well. All right. Constance, do you want to go ahead now?
Yeah, hello. Hello, Brittany. Hello, Alicia. Okay, so I'm going through the link that you sent for the course breakdown. And I'm a bit confused. I'm seeing like 30 credit hours here. Is it like for the entire program? And like, are there like semesters? Like, is it like one semester or like two semester? And then the individual, like say, categories of courses, are they available every semester or are they available for like a specific, period of time? And then I'm assuming like each course is a 3 credit hour. Are there courses that are less than 3? So yeah, those are just, my questions. Just some clarification on the link you sent.
Yeah, and I don't know, Alicia, if you want me to start, but there's two semesters typically, the fall and the winter semester. So things are typically broken out in those 2 semesters. Most classes are 3 credits. That's not always the case, especially if you want to take like a fun one and like and maybe there's like a 1 credit class that's more of like a lecture, like I just want to learn, you just sit in a class and like learn from somebody else. And there's not as much coursework. My understanding is the credits reflect the amount of like work that you put in. So like the lower credit classes, like 1 credit means you don't really have to do as much work as you would for like a 3 credit class. I think 3 credits roughly translates to 3 hours of classes in a week. And so sometimes there are 4-hour class, like sometimes you might have like a 4-credit class, but on average, there are 3 credits. And in terms of availability of classes, I think it varies. So a lot of most of the required courses, just because everybody needs to take them, those are offered every semester. If there's like a specific, I don't know if the nomenclature is still the same, but sometimes there's like a 999 course or like a new course that like somebody wants to test out, or there's, just like a limited availability. It might be like 20 students take this one course. I think I took like a battery course that was new. And so there weren't that many students in it, and it was only offered like one semester and not the other. But most of the courses I would expect that are required, those are offered all the time. So the more specific you get in the classes that you're looking at, the more likely it is that they're not always available, or like there's not always enough room in those classes. And I can't remember exactly how the system works, but when you bid for classes in the beginning of the semester, like you kind of pick out pretty quickly like what you want. And then you can kind of shuffle around from there to get where you like the classes that you want to take.
Exactly. So some of the courses are only offered in specific semesters, but your graduate coordinator will work with you to create your plan of study and your course selections to make sure that everything is fitting. And if some course is not going to be offered, they let you know as soon as they know, and help you backfill those courses so that everything fits and that you're meeting those requirements for the 30 total credits, and that you're hitting all the graduation requirements as well. So you have someone there, as long as you're utilizing your graduate coordinator, to make sure that everything is fitting everything in, and that you're not out there kind of in the ether alone on this, that you have your graduate coordinator with you through the process as well. So don't worry too much about that part. Another question that came in through the chat, Brittany, was, did the degree touch on waste to energy plants?
It did. And I think, so we definitely learned about them. I didn't personally do like a class project on a waste to energy plant, although I think others did. So there's a lot of flexibility in like the projects that you choose. So you might, there may be, you'll have some like, I guess like some guardrails of what kind of to choose in terms of like your independent or like group projects for each class. But if you were interested in waste to energy, you would have the opportunity to explore that deeper. I only got a surface level because I wasn't particularly, like personally wasn't interested in doing like a in-depth project on it.
And I don't know if you'll remember specific courses, but one of the questions that came in was about the core credit classes in energy systems provide knowledge on energy generation and storage. If you remember any of the courses that you took that specifically dealt with that.
Oh, yikes. I'm bad with energy, like the numbers to these courses, but that was my focus. I guess their energy generation and storage was my focus area. And I guess they're asking for specific courses that I took.
But if you can remember any of the courses that were on those.
No. I remember the battery course was one that was specific, the one that I took for that. I'd have to go back into the numbers and look. I'm sorry, I should have been prepared to do that. I can try to follow up though.
Okay. All right. Another question we have here is, what happens to international students with the CGPA on a 5-point scale? So I can take this one pretty for you. So international students, when you are applying, you will do a Scalero report, which will take your GPA and convert it over to the US scale. So you will have to submit a Scalero report where it will transfer all of that over. So that's part of the application itself. So another question in the chat is, what positions are offered by ISD faculty and who is eligible for them? I can take this one too.
Yeah, I mean, I know that every faculty or most faculty do have like research assistants, like or GSRAs, I believe they're called, graduate student research assistant. Depending on the faculty, like their tenure or like what they're studying, they may have more than one position available and they may not do any. It kind of depends on like who the professor is and what their studies are. So the positions are based on the faculty. So if you see a professor that you are like, man, I really want to learn more about what he or she is doing, like that's where you'd focus your attention. Though, like their research will be, you'll get to learn more about what your research for them will be directly correlated to what their focus areas are. So that'll be a good way to help you like figure out who you want to talk to. In terms of eligibility, I think Alicia, you might have to take this one. I don't know if I think yeah, why don't you take that one just in case?
No, exactly. So as far as like working with faculty, there are TA, like teaching assistant positions, but again, that depends on if the course warrants needing a teaching assistant, and then you usually have to have taken that course itself, received like an A in the course, and then you can apply to be a teaching assistant for it. And then research assistants, again, building that relationship and rapport with the faculty members, showing interest in the research itself, and then applying to be the research assistant. And then if they need it, and then are granted a research assistant as well. So again, kind of like Brittany said, it just depends on the faculty and if it's allowed for it. Stephen, go ahead. You have another question?
Yes. I'll take us back to the funding. Yeah. So I think I also read on your site that research graduate assistantships, master students rarely ever get graduate assistantships. Mostly they are it's mostly the PhD students who mostly get it. So my actual question is that, I mean, Brittany said that she was lucky to have been awarded a scholarship. So assuming, say myself, I'm admitted as a, I'm admitted as a self-supporting student. Can I say apply for a graduate assistantship when any becomes available in say, August while I'm in the program?
So you can, oh, go ahead.
So you can apply for these positions on campus, like we talked about earlier, like working at the cafe or at an office on campus. As far as being like a TA, teaching assistant, or a grad assistant, like TAs, when you come to the university, you wouldn't be able to do that right away because you have to have taken the course first.
Yeah.
Then like receive the A in the course and then apply to be a TA for that course. And that's only if the course warrants needing a TA for it. So that's where you can apply for being a TA. And then so that's the caveats around being like a teaching assistant.
Mm-hmm. And that's when you build in your classes, you'll build a relationship with your professor and like a rapport, and they will get to know you and whether or not like you would be a good fit for them as a TA as well. The one thing I'll add about teaching assistants, or like we call them GSIs, but yeah, teaching assistants is several of my colleagues, you mentioned like, so they first go to PhDs and oftentimes, not always, but like ESE doesn't have a PhD program, right? So there's a lot of programs that don't necessarily have like a automatic funnel for those TA assistants or those TAs. The other thing that a lot of my classmates did is if you have like a different, you could also apply to be a TA in a class like for a bachelor student class, for example. So one of my friends, he basically got through his 3 years of school by applying to be a TA for like general requirement classes for bachelor students in like a different program because he was in marketing previously and he had a lot of experience there, and somehow he managed to like convince, and like I don't know if convince is the right word, but he managed to like talk to a professor and get a teaching assistantship like outside of his actual degree program. So there are options to do that. They're rare, but if you have like if you're a career switcher and have a very specific niche like skill set and you want to look at and apply to GSI or TA positions outside of your field, you can, but that's less likely. So I guess I don't want to like say it's an option, but it's maybe not a likely one.
Okay. But what if you're applying to your direct field? Like myself, I I have a bachelor's in renewable energy engineering. And I've been working in the renewable energy sector for a while. And I mean, I've applied, yes, and I've already, I mean, lucky enough to have received an admission offer. Yes, and
Congrats.
yeah, thank you very much. Yes, and I'm looking forward to joining this fall, and that is why I'm very, very interested in the funding,
Yes.
opportunities available. And, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I mean, when the GSI positions open, like you can apply to any of them. It's not focused on your program necessarily, but like most likely the people who get GSI positions will be in that program and will have worked with that professor and proven themselves to that professor. Because the professor ideally would like to know who's going to be supporting them, and
Yeah.
I would feel that way too, right? It's like you'd want to make sure that the person who's going to teach your students can also like do the content of the course themselves. And so, yeah, it's unlikely you'd be able to apply for this fall. But after you're there this fall and get relationships with the professors, definitely look forward to applying in the spring.
Yep.
Thank you very much. You've been very helpful.
No problem.
Brittany, another question for you. How has this degree impacted your career?
Oh, I mean, it's been incredible. So I don't think I would be where I am today if I did not have this degree. So I've mentioned it a couple of times, but I was an English major. I have a lot of skill sets that serve me well in my current role as a business owner, but I would not have had the depth and technical knowledge that I need to go into meetings with executives at different companies and convince them that my team can do the work for them. Like I need to have that technical background and savvy to be able to communicate what my team will do and how that would benefit them. So ESC for me was crucial for me to even be able to like perform my job as it is as a consultant. I do a lot of technical work every day. I evaluate most of my day is in spreadsheets and I love it. And I think, yeah, I guess your question was like, where would say your question again, Alicia? I'm sorry. Where would I be without it?
Do you think like how has the degree impacted your career?
Oh.
Or do you think it has impacted your career?
I do think it has impacted my career for that, for that reason. So the job I got right out of school was specifically because of the capstone project that I did with ESC. So that's a very clear correlation. But even in that role, I was able to dive in much more technically than most of my colleagues were and gained a lot of traction and trust with my clients right away because of the skill sets I had gleaned from ESE. I'd also say just in general in my field, and I don't know what each of you is going into necessarily, but in sustainability consulting, there's a huge gap for technical knowledge. There's a lot of focus on management consulting or like kind of more qualitative lens. And this world really needs good data and it needs people who understand that data. And it needs people who are willing to dive in and make sure that quality and rigor are paramount. And that is something that's just increasingly more important. So that technical skill set will serve you well no matter what you decide to do, because we all need to focus more on getting correct numbers and learning how to communicate them.
Brittany, do you remember a favorite class? I know we've touched on some of the courses that you took, like a battery course, and you talked about building the windmill in one of your courses, but do you remember a specific like favorite course?
One of my favorite courses is actually like an LCA course. So I don't know if you're familiar with life cycle assessment, those of you guys on the call, but life cycle assessment is like evaluating a product from the beginning of its life cycle all the way to the end. So it could be like your phone, like what all the different components that go into developing and processing and transporting the components of your phone, putting them together and then shipping them to you and like disposing of that at end of life. So I think like the LCA course I took was particularly interesting because we actually got to go into a model, like using Umberto is the tool that they used in that course, and figure out like you pick what you want to evaluate, and with a group actually assess and evaluate like the product throughout its entire life cycle. And it gets you to think about the broader system, but within a product perspective. So even within this tiny little product, there's a huge system that goes into it, huge supply chain, like very, interesting, like end of life pathways. Like if this happened, what would this be? And so I think that was one of my favorite things.
What advice would you give a new student starting this program?
What advice? Like 3 things popped into my head, so I'll try to remember all of them. But the first one I think is like take advantage of all that Michigan has to offer in addition to what the program has to offer. I really loved being like I was involved in a lot of aspects of Michigan and in the program. So like for example, I was on the board of the Ross Energy Club. So there's a business school called, the Ross Business School. And that was a great way for me to network and get to know people completely outside of my program. I was the only engineer on that board. And like, so it was kind of a good way for me to interact with people outside of my immediate area. And there are several other programs that I got involved with or classes I took outside of ESE. Within ESE, I also was overly involved. I took advantage of being like a graduate student coordinator and like speaking with professors and working with them. I tried to go to a lot of events. I think that's what I would, for those of you who would be in person, going to a lot of events and networking and getting to know like different companies that you might want to work for someday. So definitely take advantage of the network you have while being here and the alumni network that you'll have when you leave here. Like that's a huge network. I mentioned it earlier, but there are like 100 graduate programs at Michigan in the top 10. So anyone you engage with pretty much throughout the entire campus is going to be an expert in their field. And when else would you have that experience? I mean, it's incredible to have access to that much knowledge and perspective and experience. So definitely take advantage of that. And within ESC, just more of like a, like for me, I worked hard. Like I worked really hard. And I think like many of you might also experience that. It's like a lot of work. It's really interesting. It's difficult. It's challenging. It's motivating. I mean, I would just really focus on getting what you want out of it. Like if you don't know what you want to do for a career yet, that's great. But if you do know, think like, what kind of skills am I trying to get out of here? In this group project, do I want to be the project manager? Do I want to be the person who writes the report, or the person who presents the presentation? Or like, how do you want to practice your skills for getting, when you actually get a job? That's the ideal goal. How do you want to utilize those skills and like hone them while you're in this like beautiful bubble of an environment, educational environment? I know for me, that's like, I knew I was good at presenting because I was an English teacher. I taught for a living. So I wasn't focused so much on presenting in school. I wanted to focus on the other stuff to make sure I was more well-rounded leaving it. I think that's probably it. Yeah.
Great. Another question came in. During the capstone project, are you responsible for reaching out to the company?
I think this varies quite a bit. And from my experience, like I found the internship and coordinated with them on what I would want my capstone to be. And so it was very much for me like driven by what I wanted to do. I think there are instances where, there might be more like, here's like this package capstone and do you want to do it? But there wasn't, I think it was mostly student led. So you pretty much decide, Alicia, correct me if I'm wrong. That was my experience. I really decided what I wanted to do and
you
had
are
the
correct.
liberty to do it. Yeah.
You are correct. We ask that our students go up first and find those capstone opportunities. So utilizing the engineering career resource center on campus, which you have access to as a student. So that office helps you with resume reviews, mock interviews, even salary negotiation appointments, and also gives you access to their job board, which has internship, full-time, and co-op opportunities. And they also bring companies to campus. So there's 2 large career fairs, one in the fall, one in the winter semester, and they bring in over 300 companies to campus. So that's a great time to network and get yourself out there and, build these relationships with these companies and recruiters. And that's where most of the students find those capstone opportunities. And that's what we ask you all to do first, because you're a master's student now. So we kind of put that pressure on you first. Now, of course, if you don't find an opportunity, we're not going to say, oh, well, you don't graduate because you didn't find a capstone project. We have a capstone coordinator. It's one of our faculty members, Nicole Freeberg, and she will help you find a capstone project, of course, so that you can graduate because it's a requirement. But we ask that you go forth and try to find those opportunities yourself before we kind of assist you through that process. And then you will take a capstone course for it that helps guide you through that project, and you have deliverables that you have to do throughout the course. But yeah, that's kind of on you all first. So all right.
Which is great because you don't want to spend a ton of time and energy in something you don't want to do. Like you get to decide it. It's really yeah, I found that to be very valuable to choose my own path.
I have another question here for you, Brittany. Would you recommend the program, do you think, to others?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I loved it. I loved my time there. I mean, I'm still here. I'm still an active alumni because I like I like being involved, and I really appreciated what the program offered me. I would strongly recommend it. I think between like the quality and engagement of the professors, and the same of the students, like my fellow classmates, I learned a ton from as well. Like you have such a diverse experience within each class that you have, just because the students are coming from all over campus and all over the world. I would strongly recommend it. I felt like it gave me a good balance of technical savvy without losing sight of the bigger picture. And I think that sometimes programs can do one thing really well, but not the other. So I felt like ESE provided me with the details, like the mechanics of what we're working on, but also the broader perspective of how this fits in within like, you know, the current political climate, within the policy landscape. So I got like a good sense of both big picture and details. And I don't think a lot of programs provide that.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for anyone wondering, we are accepting applications right now for our spring summer 2025 application as well as fall 2025. Spring summer, I want to note, is online only. So there's online courses only for that. The February 15th deadline has already passed, but the next deadline is March 15th, and the final deadline for spring summer is April 15th. And then we are, like I said, still in the fall 2025 app cycle. So we are in this extended consideration, the final deadline's here. So if you're an international student looking to be on campus for the fall, that last deadline is March 15th. So coming right around the corner here. And then all other applicants is August 15th. So this means any international students looking to be online for the fall can apply. And then domestic students looking to be online or on campus, you have until August 15th. Those apps are open though, so I recommend don't wait for these deadlines. Apply as soon as you are ready. So don't wait and put it off like, oh, I have time, because it's best to get it done with, because those letters of rec sometimes take time because those recommenders have to submit them, not you. So kind of have to nudge them along. We already covered our application materials, so you've already got that. All right. Are there any other last minute questions for Brittany? All right. Again, I want to share my contact information so that if you have any specific questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to help you and answer any questions that you may have about the program. Email works best, but I'm always happy to set up a Zoom call. Well, I want to thank you all so much for joining our alumni call today. Of course, a huge thank you to Brittany for being here and answering all these questions so well and just sharing her experiences for the program. Thank you so much, Brittany, and thank you all for joining. We hope to see the applications soon. And as always, go blue!
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Good luck, everyone.